You always were the disappointment, Ethan. This house was never meant for you and your little family. Pack your things and leave by the weekend. We don't need you here anymore." Adrian's voice, sharp and condescending, cut through the air. I stood outside the dining room, clutching the doorframe. My breath caught in my throat. Ethan had been pacing, his frustration evident. "I've put up with your arrogance and your endless criticisms for too long," Ethan shot back. "We'll leave, but mark my words, you'll regret this decision." The moment hung heavy in the air as the argument simmered down. My heart ached for Ethan. He had always strived to keep the family together, to fulfill his father's wish, but Adrian's return had shattered the fragile peace we had managed to maintain. As I stepped into the room, Ethan turned toward me, his face a blend of anger and sorrow. "Lila, we need to talk about what's next." Our life had turned upside down since we moved in. 3 months ago, Ethan's father, Harold, had called in a panic. His health was failing, and he needed support. Ethan, ever the dutiful son, agreed despite knowing how fraught the relationship with his mother and brother could be. "Do you remember how reluctant you were, Ethan?" I said softly, trying to offer some comfort. "You weren't sure about moving in, but Harold needed us. You did the right thing." Ethan sighed. "But at what cost, Lila? Adrian's back, and he's making our lives hell. Now we have to uproot our family again." We retreated to our bedroom, which Harold had kindly given us when we moved in. The worn walls and creaking floorboards had since become our little haven of sanity. "Maybe this is our chance to find a place of our own," I suggested, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Somewhere we can finally be at peace." Ethan nodded, though his worry was clear. "We have to think about Logan, too. He's had enough upheaval already. He just started at a new school." Logan, our 17-year-old son, had been adapting well despite everything, but the constant tension in the house wasn't fair to him. "We'll make it work," I said with conviction. "We've been through worse. We can get through this too." Dinner that night was tense. Fiona, our 82-year-old mother-in-law, was her usual stern self, but tried to make small talk. Harold, frail yet kind, only managed a few words, but his eyes spoke volumes of apology and understanding. Adrian sat smugly, as if he had already won. "Lila, could you pass the mashed potatoes?" Adrian's voice oozed mock politeness. I clenched the serving spoon, but handed it over. Ethan barely touched his food, his mind clearly elsewhere. Later, as we lay in bed, Ethan turned to me, determination in his eyes. "We'll pack up tomorrow and start looking for a new place first thing. We deserve a life free from all this." I squeezed his hand. Despite the turmoil, I believed in our ability to move forward. We had each other, and that was enough. Morning dawned, and the house was eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the tension that had filled it the night before. Ethan and I started packing our things, prioritizing the essentials. Logan helped, his usual teenage grumbling absent. He knew the gravity of the situation. "Do you think we'll find something soon?" Logan asked, folding his clothes into a suitcase. "We will, Logan," Ethan replied firmly. "We'll find a place where we can be happy. This is just a bump in the road." As we boxed up the last of our belongings, Harold shuffled into the room, leaning heavily on his cane. "Are you sure about this, Ethan?" "There's no other way, Dad," Ethan said, his voice softening. "Adrian has made it clear we're not welcome here." Harold's eyes grew misty. "Your mother? She favors Adrian, but I never wanted this. I'm sorry things turned out this way." I placed a hand on Harold's arm. "We know, Harold, you've always been kind to us." By midday, Adrian had made his presence known, sauntering into the room with a smug look on his face. "Need any help moving out faster?" he sneered. Ethan straightened, his fists clenching. "We're handling it, Adrian. Don't worry about us." Adrian laughed. "Oh, I'm not worried, just making sure you don't overstay your welcome." My jaw tightened, but I held my tongue. There was no point in engaging with him. By evening, Ethan's mother, Fiona, appeared in the doorway, her face a mask of indifference. "Dinner's ready," she said curtly. "You might as well eat before you go." The dining room felt colder than usual. Fiona and Adrian seemed to carry on as if nothing had happened, while Harold remained silent, his sadness palpable. We ate quickly, wanting to get the meal over with. "Mom, could you stop pretending everything is fine?" Logan suddenly spoke up, his frustration boiling over. "This isn't fair." Fiona glanced at him, her lips pursed. "Life isn't always fair, Logan. You'll understand when you're older." Ethan pushed his plate away and stood up. Enough. We're done here. We'll be gone by morning. He turned to Harold. Dad, take care. We'll keep in touch. Harold nodded sadly. Take care, son. We finished packing in silence, the heaviness of the situation wrapping around us like a shroud. As night fell, we squeezed into Logan's small room, sleeping on mattresses on the floor. Ethan's voice broke the quiet. Tomorrow, we'll find our new beginning. Remember, Lila, we're stronger together. I nodded in the dark, taking solace in his words. No matter what Adrian or Fiona threw our way, we would face it head on. Our family's bond was unbreakable, and that was more than enough. We arranged a moving van early the next morning and loaded our belongings with a mix of urgency and relief. Ethan arranged for a storage unit while we began our search for a new home. Logan, though visibly weary, kept his spirits high, cracking jokes to lighten the mood. Once we finished, we stood in the driveway, looking at the house one last time. Harold sat on the porch, watching us with a mournful expression. Fiona and Adrian were nowhere to be seen. Take care of yourself, Dad, Ethan called out. Harold nodded, giving a small wave. You too, son. Stay strong. We drove away, leaving behind the web of spite and manipulation. Within hours, we were checking out rental properties, hopeful that a fresh start was around the corner. Meanwhile, back at the house, Adrian began tightening his grip. He demanded the best meals, barking orders at Fiona, and treating Harold like a nuisance. Fiona's earlier coldness towards us was now thawed by Adrian's escalating arrogance, and she grew weary of her once favored son. By the end of the day, Adrian's demands had only increased. Why can't you keep up, Mom? Is it that hard to make a decent meal around here? Fiona sighed, her patience wearing thin. I'm doing my best, Adrian. Maybe you should help out instead of just criticizing. Adrian scoffed. Help out? That's not my job, Mom. That's what you're here for. Harold, watching the growing tension, finally spoke up. Adrian, this isn't right. We need to work together, not tear each other apart. Adrian shrugged off his father's words, continuing his tirade without a care in the world. Back in town, we found a modest house that seemed promising. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. As we began to settle in, Ethan's phone rang. He frowned at the screen. It's Mom. Are you going to answer? I asked, my curiosity piqued. He hesitated, then picked up. Hello, Mom. Fiona's voice was shaky. Ethan, I need your help. Adrian's, not what I imagined. He's too demanding. Ethan's expression hardened. You made your choice, Mom. You pushed us out. I know, Ethan, but Harold's health is getting worse and I can't manage everything, she pleaded. Ethan looked at me, seeking my input. I shook my head, firm in my resolve. We can't save everyone, Ethan, and we need to focus on us. He relayed the message to Fiona. I'm sorry, Mom, but we can't come back. We have to think about our family now. Fiona's sigh was filled with regret. I understand. As we ended the call, I hugged Ethan tightly. We did the right thing. They need to face the consequences of their actions. Ethan nodded, his eyes resolute. We have our own lives to rebuild. No more looking back. And with that, we began piecing together the fragments of our new life, basking in the freedom and opportunities ahead, all the while knowing that karma had its own way of setting things right. We settled into our new place quickly. It wasn't luxurious, but it was ours, and that was all that mattered. As we unpacked, the tension began to lift. Logan seemed happier, and Ethan's shoulders were slightly less hunched. Just as we started to feel at home, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Adrian standing there, his face twisted in a smug grin. What do you want, Adrian? I asked, barely keeping my composure. Adrian pushed past me into the living room. I've come to see if you're settling in well. Wanted to check up on my little brother and his lovely family. Ethan came out from the kitchen, his eyes narrowing. Get out, Adrian. You're not welcome here. Adrian raised an eyebrow. Is that any way to greet family? I just wanted to see how you're doing. We're doing fine, no thanks to you, Ethan snapped. You have no business being here. Adrian chuckled darkly. Oh, but I do. You see, Mom and Dad are struggling without your help. It's quite entertaining to watch. My blood boiled. How can you be so heartless? They're your parents. Adrian shrugged. They made their bed. Isn't that what you always say, Lila? Ethan stepped forward, his jaw clenched. You've said what you came to say, now leave. Adrian looked around, feigning disappointment. Such a pity. I was hoping for a cozy family reunion. But fine, I'll go for now. Remember, Ethan, you can run, but you can't hide from family responsibilities. With a final smirk, Adrian sauntered out. Dad, leaving a trail of tension in his wake. I turned to Ethan, my hands trembling. We can't let him get to us. We need to focus on us, remember? Ethan nodded, but the fire in his eyes was undeniable. He's not going to ruin this for us, Lila, I promise. Days turned into weeks and we found our rhythm. Meanwhile, reports from Fiona trickled in. It seemed Adrian's return had only added to their troubles. Harold's health was worsening, and Fiona found herself overwhelmed by Adrian's increasing demands and lack of support. One evening, the phone rang again. This time it was Harold. Ethan's face softened as he answered. Dad, are you okay? Harold's voice was weak but determined. Ethan, I need to see you. Things are bad here. Adrian is unbearable. Your mother can't cope. Ethan's resolve wavered, but he looked at me and I shook my head. We can bring Dad here, but we're not going back, I said firmly. Ethan relayed the message. Dad, pack your things. You're coming to stay with us. Harold's relief was apparent. Thank you, son. I don't know how much longer I could have lasted there. Hanging up, Ethan sighed. It's the right thing to do, Lila. We'll make it work. I took his hand. We're stronger together. We'll get through this. The next few days were a whirlwind as we prepared to bring Harold to our home. Despite the challenges, we held on to the belief that, together, we could face anything, and that, in time, Adrian and Fiona would reap the consequences of their own actions. The day Harold moved in with us marked a significant shift. His presence brought a mix of relief and underlying tension. We rearranged the small living room to accommodate his needs, determined to make him as comfortable as possible. Thank you for taking me in, Harold said, settling into the recliner we had bought for him. Your family, Ethan replied. We look out for each other. As days passed, we fell into a routine. Harold's gentle demeanor contrasted sharply with Fiona's demanding nature and Adrian's arrogance, making it clear why Ethan felt so conflicted about leaving them behind. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Harold broke the silence. I never wanted it to come to this. Adrian's behavior, it's inexcusable. Fiona, well, she's always had a blind spot for him. Ethan's face hardened. Dad, we all make choices. I just wish Mom had seen the truth sooner. Harold nodded, sorrow etched on his features. I hope she realizes it soon. Adrian's already caused too much damage. The phone rang, cutting through the moment. I answered, my stomach nodding at the sound of Fiona's voice. Lila, it's Fiona. I need to talk to Ethan. I handed the phone over, mouthing, it's his mom, to Ethan. He took it, leaning against the counter. Mom? What is it? Fiona's voice was strained. Ethan, I need your help. Adrian's behavior is out of control. He's draining our finances and refuses to help with anything. I don't know what to do. Ethan took a deep breath. Mom, we've heard about Adrian's actions, but you chose to support him over us. We can't keep fixing your mistakes. But Ethan, I'm desperate, Fiona pleaded. Harold's not there, and I can't manage alone. Ethan's face was set in stone. We're taking care of Dad because it's the right thing to do. But we can't rescue you from the choices you made. You need to figure this out. Tears welled in Fiona's voice. Please, Ethan, I can't do this alone. Ethan's resolve showed no cracks. You have Adrian, Mom. He's your son, too. He hung up, exhaling deeply. We have our own lives to lead, Lila. We can't keep getting drawn back. The next morning, as Harold and I sat on the porch, he looked at me with a sad smile. You've given me a second chance at peace, Lila. No matter what Fiona says or does, you've done more than enough. I squeezed his hand. We're just glad you're here with us. Later, Ethan took Logan out for some father-son time, while Harold and I enjoyed the quiet. The weight of the situation still lingered, but amidst it all there was a sense of newfound hope and determination. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over our small newfound sanctuary, we felt a glimmer of the future, one free from the past's relentless grip. In those quiet moments, we knew that, despite the chaos behind us, we were forging a path forward stronger than ever before. Life in our new home settled into a calm, manageable routine. Harold's presence was a constant reminder of the past, yet also a testament to the strength of our family. He found peace in the simple joys, afternoon walks with Logan, quiet meals together, and watching old westerns in the evenings. One afternoon, while I was preparing dinner, the phone rang. I answered, recognizing Fiona's strained voice on the other end. Lila, I need to speak with Ethan. It's important. I handed the phone to Ethan, who took it with a look of resignation. Mom, what is it now? Fiona's voice wavered. Ethan, Adrian's situation has gotten worse. His scandals hit the news, and he's lost his job. He's threatening to leave, and we're on the brink of losing the house. I don't know who else to turn to. Ethan's face was unreadable. Mom, we warned you about Adrian, but you chose to ignore us. Now you want us to clean up his mess again? There's no one else, Ethan. Please, we need help. Fiona's voice cracked. Ethan took a long, deep breath. We'll think about what we can do, but don't expect everything to go back to the way it was. He hung up and sat down heavily, looking at me. Adrian's finally facing the consequences of his actions. Fiona wants our help, but I'm not sure what we can or should do. I placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. We've done our best to help. We need to protect our family now. As the days passed, Fiona's calls became more desperate. Adrian's downfall was public, and his wife had left him, taking what little they had left. The once confident brother now found himself at the mercy of the same parents he'd so easily disregarded when things were good. One evening, while Logan was out with friends, we gathered in the living room. Ethan broke the silence. I've decided we'll help Dad move in with us permanently. We can't do more than that. Harold nodded, looking relieved. I never wanted to be a burden. I just want peace in my last years. The next morning, Fiona called again, her voice heavy with resignation. Ethan, I know I've made mistakes and I've favored Adrian unfairly, but please, understand, we're desperate. Ethan was firm yet kind. I'm sorry, Mom, but Dad's welcome here. As for you and Adrian, you need to find your own way. We can't save you from the choices you made. Fiona's sobs echoed through the phone. I understand. Thank you, Ethan. She hung up, leaving a weight in the air. As we helped Harold settle further into our home, the reality of our decisions sunk in. We had chosen the path that protected our family, though it left Fiona and Adrian to contend with their actions alone. In the end, we found solace in knowing we had done right by those who deserved it, and that, sometimes, life's harshest lessons had to be learned the hard way. Our newfound peace, earned through hardship, was the beginning of a brighter, more hopeful future. The air was crisp as we prepared breakfast that Sunday morning. I could sense a shift in Harold's demeanor. He seemed more content, more at peace. The house, now marked by quiet resilience, felt like a safe haven. As we gathered around the table, Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then looked up at us. It's Fiona again. Should I answer? I nodded. It's better to know what's happening, Ethan answered, his voice careful. Hi, Mom. Fiona sounded tired and defeated. Ethan, I understand your decision. I just wanted you to know that Adrian left. He took what he could and disappeared. We're losing the house. Ethan was silent for a moment. I'm sorry, Mom. I hope you find a way to get through this. Maybe reach out for some external help. Fiona sighed. I'm trying, Ethan. I'm trying to make sense of everything. After the call, we ate in silence. Harold finally broke it. You did what you had to do, son. Don't ever doubt that. Ethan nodded. I know, Dad. It's just complicated. Later that day, as Ethan and I sat in the living room, Logan came home from playing basketball. He threw his bag down and flopped onto the couch. Dad, are Grandma and Uncle Adrian okay? Ethan hesitated. They're going through a tough time, Logan, but we've done all that we can. Logan nodded, his young face already showing signs of understanding life's complexities. I hope they figure things out. But I'm glad Grandpa is with us. Days turned into weeks, and our lives settled into a peaceful rhythm. One evening, an unexpected visitor knocked on our door. Ethan opened it to find a disheveled Adrian standing there. What do you want, Adrian? Ethan's voice was cold, filled with the history of betrayal. Adrian looked desperate. I need a place to stay, Ethan. Everything fell apart. I have nowhere else to go. Ethan's jaw tightened. You put yourself in that position. We won't let you bring your chaos here. Adrian's eyes darted around, looking for a way in. Please, Ethan. I've lost everything. I'm your brother. No, Adrian, Ethan replied firmly. You are reaping what you sowed. Leave. Adrian lingered, but the door was shut firmly in his face. Inside, Harold nodded approvingly. Sometimes, tough love is the only way. As we settled into a movie that evening, the weight of our decisions felt lighter. The consequences of Adrian's actions were his to bear alone. In the coming months, we experienced a sense of peace and stability that had long eluded us. Logan excelled in school, and I found joy in a part-time job at the local community center. One evening, as Logan prepared for a college visit, Harold looked around the dinner table and smiled. It's good to see everyone thriving. Ethan squeezed my hand under the table. We've come a long way and learned a lot. We're stronger than ever. We raised our glasses in a silent toast to the journey we had endured and to the bright, uncharted path that lay ahead. Though the scars of the past remained, they were overshadowed by the love and unity that now defined our family. The bright sun heralded a new beginning as we prepared Harold for Logan's college visit. Our excitement was palpable. Logan was thriving, and his acceptance into a prestigious college added joy to our lives. "Ready for the trip, Dad?" Ethan asked, helping Harold into the car. Harold smiled, his eyes twinkling. I wouldn't miss this for the world. The drive was filled with laughter and anticipation. Logan talked about his plans, and we shared our hopes for his future. As we approached the campus, Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. "It's Mom again." "Do you want to answer?" I asked gently. Ethan's brows knitted together. "I'll call her back later. Today is about Logan." We parked and began our tour of the beautiful campus. Logan's eyes sparkled with excitement, and Harold's enthusiasm was infectious. Watching Logan navigate through the possibilities reminded us why we had made the tough choices we did. By evening, we had checked into a cozy bed and breakfast. After a hearty dinner, as we settled into our rooms, Ethan finally returned Fiona's call. "Ethan, thank you for calling back," Fiona's voice cracked, filled with exhaustion. "Adrian, he's hit rock bottom. He's lost everything and has been arrested for fraud. I don't know what to do." Ethan took a deep breath. "Mom, you need to reach out to the proper authorities and get some help. We've done everything we can. It's up to you and Adrian now." Fiona sobbed quietly. "I understand. I just wish I'd seen things sooner. I'm so sorry, Ethan." Ethan clenched his jaw, then softened. "It's in the past now. Focus on making things right. We can't fix this for you, but I hope you find the strength to move forward." After he hung up, Ethan sighed deeply. "It's never easy, is it?" I placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "No, but we're making the right decisions for our family." The next morning, we continued our tour. By lunchtime, Logan had already made a few friends and explored enough to feel confident in his choice. Harold beamed with pride, and Ethan looked more relaxed than he had in months. As we prepared to head back home, Harold spoke up. "This visit, it's a reminder of what we've accomplished as a family. Logan's future is bright, and we've built something strong and enduring." I nodded, tears welling up. "We've gone through so much, but it's brought us closer together." Ethan squeezed my hand. "We'll keep moving forward. Together." The drive home was quieter, filled with reflections and hopes for the future. As we pulled into the driveway, it felt like returning to a sanctuary, a place we had fought for and earned. We helped Harold inside and settled back into our routine. The weight of the past had lifted, replaced by a sense of peace and anticipation for the future. That evening, we gathered around the dinner table once more. "To new beginnings," Ethan said, raising his glass. "To new beginnings," we echoed, clinking our glasses together. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over our home, I looked around at my family, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. We had faced the storm and emerged stronger, ready for whatever lay ahead.
My name is Rachel. I'm 30 years old. I met my now husband Curtis through a mutual friend just 3 years ago. We got married 6 months ago. Curtis and I are the same age and enjoy camping, hiking, winter sports, and others. We hit it off right away. We enjoyed our dates because we shared the same hobbies, such as climbing mountains and skiing. I thought that even after we got married, we would be able to live ordinary, happy days as before. The reality was not so sweet. I got involved in some troublesome things by marrying Curtis. You can probably guess what that trouble is. It's my relationship with my mother-in-law. In my case, my adversary was not only my mother-in-law, but also my sister-in-law. My husband and I moved to a house near my parents-in-law's house after we got married. For some reason, my mother-in-law seems to think that I'm a woman of the worst kind who had tricked her precious son. Immediately after our marriage, she began to contact me frequently. She started making me come to their house on my way home from work and on my days off. I expected. We had just gotten married and I wanted to spend time with my husband's family as peacefully as possible. When my mother-in-law called me, I couldn't say no. I tried not to visit my mother-in-law's house unless I had something to do. However, when I went to my in-law's house, I was not made to feel welcome. On the contrary, my mother-in-law would make me do all kinds of housework and chores. My father-in-law just looked on and didn't say anything. He just smirks and laughs at me when my mother-in-law said something sarcastic to me. If he's not going to say anything for me, why don't he just shut up? It's a bit of a snide air. Right after we got married, my mother-in-law and father-in-law lived at home like this. Just 2 months ago, my sister-in-law, who was supposed to be married and living with her husband, came back to the family. I don't know the details because I didn't hear them directly. According to my husband's story, my sister-in-law borrowed money in her husband's name. Then she wasted the money into gambling. Her husband found out and asked her for a divorce. My sister-in-law was an extreme gambler and even stole money from my husband's wallet when she was single. It seems that she had always had a history of being sloppy with men. She said it was a miracle that she was able to get married. My husband felt that he could finally distance himself from her. My parents-in-law seems to love my sister-in-law. Objectively speaking, my sister-in-law was 100% to blame. Her parents were happy to accept my sister-in-law, who came back to their house. Not only that, they told my sister-in-law a lot of bad things about me. As a result, my sister-in-law joined in and started to bully me too. It's the dream team. There's my mother-in-law who calls me and forces me to do housework. My father-in-law, who had a snide attitude, and my sister-in-law, who was a foul-mouthed gambling maniac. I thought it would be too much for me after 6 months of marriage. One day, I was summoned back to my parents-in-law's house. My mother-in-law knew that I was off work today. "You're just lounging around at home anyway, aren't you? I will teach you how to be a proper wife, so come over to my house." That's what she said to me. I knew my sister-in-law was there, so I didn't want to go. "No, I had some things to do today," I told her. "Then come over when you are done with your errands, you understand?" Then, she hangs up the phone without even waiting for me to reply. I didn't want to speak ill of my beloved husband's family to him, but I couldn't endure it alone any longer. So I called my husband, who was working that day. "I'm at your parents' house because my mother-in-law called me. Could you come over after work?" My husband immediately responded, yes. I finished up at home and headed to my in-laws' house. When I arrived, the three of them were waiting for me. As usual, there's cleaning, laundry, and cooking to do. On this particular day, they spent an additional 2 hours explaining to me what a failure I am as a wife. "You don't deserve to be with our son. You don't even have a pretty face. When are you going to divorce him?" my mother-in-law said. And my sister-in-law added, "That's so true." And they laughed together. My father-in-law didn't join in the conversation, but he was grinning and drinking in the background. When I listened without saying a word, "You couldn't say anything because we told the truth." "Well, that's right. You seem like a dull woman to look at." My sister-in-law snickered at that. My mother-in-law heard that too. "Oh, Grace, you'd feel sorry if I told the truth, wouldn't you?" And just when they were laughing their heads off, "Hey, what was that?" My mother-in-law and sister-in-law turned around in a panic to see my husband standing there. He looked so fierce that they could not imagine what he would do. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law went completely rigid.
I was on my way.
I knew you would be here soon, so I was excited to see you. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law were laughing out loud because they were too excited to talk. They didn't notice the sound of my husband coming in the front door.
What?
Curtis! Since when?
I've been listening to you since a while ago. I never thought my mother and sister would say such terrible things to Rachel.
My husband said with a cold look in his eyes. When my sister-in-law and mother-in-law found out that my husband had heard the whole thing, their faces turned pale. No. Yes. It was just a little joke. They were desperately trying to make excuses. Their panic was more than I had imagined. I almost laughed a little myself, but my husband didn't take their excuses seriously.
You have been hurting Rachel like this, haven't you? And for the record, Dad, you're just as guilty. I have truly failed you both. Don't ever contact me again except for weddings and funerals.
Then my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, who had been making a lot of excuses up to that point, freaked out and stopped talking. My father-in-law looked at my husband, and his mouth was agape. It's true that my husband doesn't usually get angry at all, and he's always kind to his family members. It was precisely because he was such a mild-mannered person that the whole family was so surprised. I was also overwhelmed by my husband's spirit at that time. My parents-in-law and sister-in-law were in a state where they could not say anything, so I felt relieved. Thanks to my husband, we are now semi-separated from my in-laws. I felt a little sorry for my husband, who had to distance himself from his family because of me. Thanks to him, my life became much less stressful and more fulfilling than before. One day, after about 3 months of such peaceful life, I received a call on my phone from my mother-in-law. My husband wasn't there, so I hung up while I was wondering if I should answer. But it rang again right away. This is the kind of call that keeps coming until I answer. I had no choice but to answer the phone. Yes, hello?
Rachel, why didn't you answer on the first call? It's an emergency.
My mother-in-law said in a high-pitched voice, interrupting me. Emergency? What do you mean? My mother-in-law shouted as loud as she could.
Your father-in-law has collapsed. He's in the ambulance.
What? My father-in-law?
Yes, that's right. I'm going to the hospital. He said he might possibly have to have emergency surgery. I have to pay $2,100 first as a deposit for that. So Rachel, please lend me $2,100.
What? I was surprised at the insane request to lend her $2,100. But what surprised me the most was the down payment. I mean, he hasn't even been diagnosed yet, and suddenly he has to go into surgery. And to pay that money in advance, there's no way that's possible. I thought it was crazy, so I went to my mother-in-law to ask her about it. Marjorie, please calm down. A deposit of $2,100 is absolutely ridiculous. I think you should do your research first. But my mother-in-law didn't listen to me at all.
That's what they say. So we have no choice, right? If things continue as they are, your father-in-law might die. You are abandoning him, Rachel.
She just yells hysterically. I don't know what to think. Obviously, my mother-in-law is lying. So I decided to do something about it. I launched an app to record the call. I understand you're in a lot of pain, mother-in-law. I'm also worried about you. so I'm heading to the hospital. At that moment, I felt my mother-in-law's words get choked up.
What do you mean you're on the way? Anyway, I need the money.
I ignore my mother-in-law. Then please call me when you get to the hospital. And can you tell me what the symptoms are? I will find out what kind of disease it is. Then my mother-in-law said,
You are just a hospital receptionist. How can you possibly know? Just get me the money.
She desperately asked me for money. I dealt her a crushing blow. What are you talking about, mother-in-law? I'm a doctor.
What?
Yes, I'm a doctor. I told you I was a doctor when I got married. My mother-in-law didn't seem to believe me at all. When my husband told them I work at a hospital,
She's just a receptionist, right?
she didn't believe me at all. I was told, You're just a receptionist, yet you're bragging that you work at a hospital. If I had been a doctor, I'm sure they would have said all kinds of things about me. So I didn't deny it strongly and let her say whatever she wanted. And this is a result. She's trying to rob me of $2,100 by pretending that my father-in-law is sick. Well, there's no way this plan would have worked in the normal course of events. Anyway, the safety of my father-in-law is my first priority right now. Please tell me his symptoms. Then I will call my hospital and let them know. If you tell the paramedics to bring him to my hospital, I will have the test done right away, and you don't need to pay any deposit. My mother-in-law finally believed that I was a doctor. She stopped saying anything. Can you hear me, Marjorie? Hello? Marjorie? Hello? With that, the phone rang off the hook. I knew it was a lie. I had a message from my husband that he was on his lunch break. I called him up and explained to him about my mother-in-law's performance and the content of the contrivance.
My mother did that.
My husband was so mad at her that he honestly thought she was crazy. So I'm thinking, I'd like to get back at them a little bit. I explained my revenge plan to him.
Great. Go ahead. Do it.
And with his permission, I decided to give my mother-in-law and her family the best revenge present. Then, I called my in-laws who lived relatively close to me. I got a call from my mother-in-law saying that my father-in-law had fallen ill. I can't head over there right away, so can you head over to your in-law's house for him? I told them so with an air of sincerity. And then, of course, everyone was like, Oh, really? Really? I will head over there now. I'm on my way. A few moments later, I got a message from my husband.
They're all gathering at my parents' house because of Rachel's phone call. He said that Rachel's lies were confusing everyone, and they were starting to get angry.
And that's when I found out what was going on. At about the same time, I got a call from my mother-in-law.
Rachel, come over to my house right now.
I went to my parents-in-law's house and found not only my mother-in-law, my father-in-law and my sister-in-law, as well as my in-laws who had not contacted. As soon as she saw me,
Hey, Rachel, what's going on? You can just tell everyone that your father fallen ill. It's so annoying.
She yelled at me. My sister-in-law followed my mother-in-law's lead. Yes, it's so rude to tell people that your father is fine. She glared at me like that. The other in-laws also seemed to be angry with me. One after another, they started saying bad things about me. Then my husband arrived. After making eye contact with me,
Hey, Rachel, what do you mean my dad's fine?
He said that, and he did a great job of it. I'm not lying. Your mother called me to tell me that your father had fallen ill. She asked me to lend her money,
because she needed $2,100 for a security deposit.
I told them honestly. Then my mother-in-law and sister-in-law said,
"How could you say that?"
and they laughed like fools. My sister-in-law also insisted that there was no reason for my mother-in-law to do such a thing. To top it all off, my mother-in-law said,
"I can't have a daughter-in-law who is a liar. I'm sorry, but I will make you divorce my son,"
she said with a triumphant look on her face. I stood up and said, "Can you say that after hearing this?" I started up the app that recorded my conversation with my mother-in-law and played it back.
"I'm going to the hospital, and he might have to have emergency surgery. I have to pay a deposit of $2,100 for that. So Rachel, please lend me $2,100.
As my mother-in-law's voice started playing on my phone, my mother-in-law turned blue. There was no way my in-laws could have misheard my mother-in-law's voice. My father-in-law's brother asked,
"Hey, what's this all about?"
asked my mother-in-law and her family in a low voice.
"Well, this is..."
The mother-in-law began to mumble. Then my husband, who had remained silent until then, spoke up.
"Guys, Rachel has been bullied by my mom and my sister for a long time. They didn't even believe that Rachel was a doctor, and they went to this ridiculous length. I just wanted to let you all know what these people are really like today, and that's what me and Rachel came up with. I'm sorry, I dragged you into this."
When he said that, everyone's anger immediately turned to my in-laws and sister-in-law. My sister-in-law looked like she was about to cry.
"Oh, I really need the money. I'm in debt and I can't get my head around it."
That's what she complained. But that doesn't mean this kind of fraud is allowed. My in-laws are saying,
"Insulate us. Don't ever contact us again."
With these words, they left my parents-in-law's house. Eventually, my husband said,
"I'm not going to have anything to do with you people ever again. You don't even have to invite us to your weddings or funerals. Goodbye."
With that, he left his parents' house. Since then, my husband and I have not answered even once when we are contacted by my in-laws. We have ignored all phone calls and emails. Rumor has it that my sister-in-law has been repeatedly in debt ever since she moved out. She finally lost her head. She finally had to file for bankruptcy. Because of all the commotion, her reputation in the neighborhood has taken a turn for the worst. They couldn't walk out of the house anymore, so the three of them moved somewhere together. Hearing this, my husband was unmoved.
I don't care where they go. They're nobody."
That's what he said. Now the 6 months has passed since then. The topic of my parents-in-law's house has come up less and less. Now, it's just in the back of my mind. Well, I don't think we'll ever have to deal with them again. We are now planning to buy our own house, which has been a long-held dream of mine. Until now, we've been thinking about my parents-in-law's house and their future. We have been thinking that our home would come a little later. But now that we are no longer tied to that kind of thing, we decided to take the plunge and buy a house right away. On our days off, my husband and I went to see open houses. Then we have lunch, and I discuss things with him. I'm the happiest I've ever been.
"You're not worthy to be my son's wife. So, divorce him right away." "Yes, I'd love to," I replied cheerfully to my mother-in-law's words. I'd been waiting for this moment for a long time. My name is Sophia. My husband Matthew and I have been blessed with 2 daughters. My daughters grew up healthy and happy, and I have no complaints about my life. But I have one huge concern, which is my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law is an expert bully and obsessed with the idea of being the eldest son and heir. My husband is the eldest of the 3 sons. He was the first to get married and the first to have children. Our older daughter was my mother-in-law's first grandchild. But we don't need a girl. Why can't she have a boy when she is the eldest son's wife?
Mom, a child is a gift. There's nothing you can do about it. So don't talk like that.
Well, if you say so. My husband defended me, but my mother-in-law wouldn't even hold my daughter. I knew she wanted a boy, but I thought seeing the face of the first grandchild would change things a bit. I never thought it would be this bad. Who are we to be concerned about boys and girls nowadays? And my mother-in-law's sarcasm escalated when I gave birth to a second child, a girl. It's really disappointing that you came to our house and can't produce an heir. What a useless wife you are. You must be a useless person with rotten nature. That's why you can't have birth to a boy. If you had a good wife, you'd have a boy. I've given birth to 3 boys. No, it has nothing to do with that. If she thinks she is right to say such a thing, she's out of her mind. Besides, why weren't you born a boy? I really wish you had been a boy.
Grandma, I can't be a girl. Am I bad?
You're not good at all. And you're not so clever like your mother. Hey, please, stop it.
What? I was just telling the truth.
My mother-in-law even verbally abused my daughter. I couldn't stand it anymore. I told my husband in tears that I didn't want to go to in-law's house. She said horrible and hurtful things to our daughters. I can't let our daughters see your mother anymore.
Okay, I got it. You don't have to go to my parents' house.
Thank you. I'm glad you understand.
But we can't miss New Year's gathering, okay?
To be honest, I didn't want to go, even for that New Year's gathering. But it's a once in a year thing, and my husband is the eldest son, so I had no choice. Anyway, I try not to have anything to do with my in-laws other than that. But recently, after work and on his day off, my husband goes to his parents' house for any reason he can think of. I was at my peak. Even though I am a stay-at-home mom, it is hard to take care of my daughters and do all the housework alone. I am working tirelessly to take care of the house and the children. And yet, I can't understand why he is relaxing at his parents' house.
Where's Daddy? Why won't he play with us?
I think he's at Grandma's house. The girls are getting nervous about their dad isn't home. You haven't spent time with the girls lately, have you? They miss you so much. You are a father. You should spend more time with your daughters.
Stop nagging me. I'm trying to defend you from my mom, wanting to have a boy. So don't be selfish. It's harder for me to stand in between you and her. And I'm tired from work. Most wives in the world would work things out with their in-laws. You should be able to do it to begin with.
When I talk to my husband about my daughters, he gets mad. Is it selfish of me to ask him to spend time with his daughters? What my mother-in-law is doing to me and my husband and my daughter's situation are not the same thing. I began to have bad feelings toward my husband, who lost his temper over such things. Then, the family gathering came, and we went to his parents' house as planned. Every year during New Year's, all the relatives got together. My husband's younger brother had a baby boy recently. The youngest brother, the third son,
just got married. My mother-in-law doesn't let go of the baby boy. It's a relief that we have an heir. Finally. Good boy. You're the heir. My mother-in-law never treated my daughters like that. As long as it's a boy, she's happy. Now, you wives, get the dishes ready. It's your job. My mother-in-law told us to serve the food and to pour the drinks. While my mother-in-law, my husband, his brothers, and relatives were enjoying drinking and chatting, we were working behind the scenes. And you, girls, go to the kitchen and learn how to cook or something. It's okay. You don't have to. Stay with me. Our daughters were also about to be sent away to the kitchen by my mother-in-law.
I can't believe she doesn't hesitate to show that she loves the boy and hates the girls. It's terrible. She treats them like that?
Oh, yeah, that's her. It happens all the time. I just couldn't believe my eyes. She was terrible. Oh, it's your first year, huh? That's what she is, unfortunately. I'm fed up with her pushing me for a grandchild or an heir.
We happen to have a boy, but I don't think it's fair to say that he's cute, because he's a boy. She kept telling me to give birth to a boy from the beginning of my pregnancy. She's serious about it, isn't she?
My mother-in-law's attitude has made all the wives feel uncomfortable. Having a mother-in-law like this, I can't help but be concerned about our future. The baby boy was cuddled and cherished by one relative after one another. My mother-in-law seemed pleased with herself, and she began to bully me as usual. My second son's wife gave birth to a boy, but I'm disappointed that my eldest son's wife is useless and can't give birth to a boy. I don't know what on earth she became a member of our family. When she got drunk, she got even more heated. She's not the right wife for us. What kind of upbringing did she have that she can only give birth to girls? You should divorce her and get a new wife. Mom, what are you talking about? Well, even if your wife can't have a boy, we're safe now. We have this baby boy. He's not the eldest son's boy, but it works too. I'll have to put up with that. It's true. I guess I'm more comfortable here. Maybe I'll get a new wife and move in here. Yes, you should. All the relatives laughed at my mother-in-law's and husband's words. Not only my mother-in-law, but even my husband made fun of me. What kind of a joke is this? This can't just be a joke because of the alcohol. I wish my husband would stop fooling around and comes to his senses.
That was terrible. Saying stuff like that and laughing all together.
Oh my gosh. My husband is laughing too. Yes, they are all insane. Every one of them are. We're completely pissed off. The three of us decided to have our revenge. And a year passed by, and another new year is here. As usual, all the relatives gathered at my parents-in-law's house. Hey, you! Bring more bottles of wine here and start cooking. Girls, go to the kitchen. Hush now. And you, my sweet little boy, look how handsome you are. You are the heir of this family. As usual, my mother-in-law keeps the wives busy, and I push my daughters into the kitchen, having the grandson by her side, and all the relatives are happy to see him grow up. The firstborn son's wife is worthless because she can only give birth to girls. Why did he marry such a wife? It's a fraud that she can't have a boy. My mother-in-law's usual bully has begun. And then, you know what? You are not worthy to be my son's wife. So, divorce him. Right away. When you are done serving the food, go home. Pack your things and leave. You can take your daughters with you. They maybe become an inconvenience to my son's next marriage. What a sudden declaration. I was surprised by her unexpected word. But it might be a perfect opportunity. Okay, I'd love to. I'll gladly divorce him. But he should take the blame. I stepped forward and confronted him with the divorce papers. What? What? You're the one who can't produce an heir. Even if it's the case, I am still his wife. A wife is a wife. Do you know what it's called when a man has an affair with another woman while he's still married? It's called adultery. I put the envelope in front of him and handed it to all the relatives. What? How did this... What? Is this? Inside the envelope was a picture of my husband and the scene of the affair. My husband and my mother-in-law roll their eyes. The relatives are in an uproar. So, you are legally responsible for the affair. See you in the court. What are you talking about? You're the one who can't even give birth to a boy. How selfish you are. The second son's wife, who is also upset with the whole situation, said,
Don't you have any shame in blatantly favoring the eldest son? Especially when in an ordinary family with no significant assets? Whether it's a boy or a girl, having a child without any health issues is the most important and difficult thing to do. Don't you understand that simple thing after having 3 children? Well, the man in his family don't even know that giving birth is a life risk. The second son's wife stared at her husband. Then she picked up the son, who was being held by a relative. I didn't give birth to a child for this family. When Matthew has a boy, that baby will come first than any other children anyway. What kind of a mother would shut up when her children were treated like garbage? I can't raise children with a father like you laughing out when you shouldn't. I'll get custody of my son, and I'll never see you again.
What?
The second son's wife also handed over the divorce papers.
And the third son's wife followed.
You may not understand how precious it is to be blessed with a child, but you only have boys and don't even pay attention to girls? And when your 2 brothers get divorced, it is my turn to get all the bullies from your mother, nagging me to give birth to a boy. So, I want to insulate ourselves from this house to protect our family. You can choose to divorce me, or you can choose to leave this crazy family and protect your own.
Wait, what?
The youngest son's wife also served him with divorce papers. The husbands were in a panic with the divorce papers from all 3 wives, all the relatives looking uncomfortable, and the mother-in-law's trembling with anger.
Don't you guys take everything upon yourselves? What? Who is the selfish one here? Don't you realize how selfish and insane you are? What? I don't think I can have a proper conversation with you. I'm going to ask for a lawyer. So, keep that in mind. Hey, Sophia! I'm sure you'll hearing from my lawyer later.
We'll talk through to him.
Whoa! What the hell?
You only have one choice. You can't choose both this house and me.
No. Wait!
We, 3 wives, left our confused husbands and went back to our parents' house. After that, I divorced my husband.
My ex-husband came to my parents' house every day. He had left all the housework to me without taking care of his children and had been having an affair. So I ended up getting more alimony than I expected. I noticed the affair when I checked our joint savings account.
What? It's gone.
There was 60,000 in there, and now it's not there. This was something we had discussed as a couple and saved for emergencies. I wanted to believe my intuition was wrong. So I requested an investigation immediately. But as a result, I found out that he was having an affair. He took advantage of the fact that my ex-mother-in-law hates me and told her he wanted to divorce me.
Actually, I'm thinking of divorcing Sophia.
Great! Then I'll kick her out of this house for you. It's best to get rid of such a hopeless wife. He didn't know that the money was jointly owned by two of us. And then he got caught in the affair.
How stupid he was.
The alimony and child support payments are going to wipe out that savings. The second son's wife also divorced him after fighting the case to court. She got custody of their son.
Please don't take my son away from me. My mom told me not to be taking him away. He is the heir.
What? What did you say?
The second son cried and pleaded at the mediation. Because he added a few unnecessary words, he didn't get any visitation with his son. They even issued a restraining order against him because of the risk of him being taken away. The youngest brother did a lot of research on childbirth and parenting. He realized how bad the family's tradition was and apologized to his wife.
I'm really sorry. My family was crazy. I know that now. I'm going to cut a tie with my mom and dad. I'm going to protect my own family as a husband.
That's how he told his mother, and he really did cut a tie. The mother-in-law, ex-husband, and second brother are all blaming each other. And it's an ugly fight. The ex-husband and the second son can't afford to pay alimony and child support. They are having a hard time.
Why is this happening when we finally have a baby boy? It's your fault, Mom. We have to pay alimony and child support. We're in huge debt.
It's your fault for having an affair. In the end, my ex-husband and the second son left their mother. The two sons and grandchildren were gone. And my ex-mother-in-law is now living a lonely life by herself. I had been preparing for my divorce, so I was able to move on smoothly and start a new life. My ex-husband pays me child support every month. I plan to live a steady life for my daughters.
Mom, we ran a race at daycare today.
Oh really? I'm sure you must be tired then.
You were tired from your work too, Mom.
I'm okay, honey. Thank you. All right, let's eat. What makes me the happiest now? It's seeing my children's cheerful and smiling faces. Using the money from my ex-husband and his adulterous partner, we are planning to go on our first family vacation overseas.
My husband left me to care for his grandfather, who came up with a great retaliation against his family.
Let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Whoa, thanks. That's nice of you. My husband looks relieved to see me in a good mood. Help me with this. What are they? I've been too busy with CEO. I haven't been able to take care of my things. I'm glad you come to me. Thank you. I handed him the divorce papers. Of course, I had already signed them. Wait a minute, you didn't mention it to me before. Right, I just did. Why? Put your dirty hand over your rotten heart and think hard about it, you hypocrite. My name is Angela. My husband Peter and I have been married for 18 years. We have a 16-year-old son and a 14-year-old daughter. After graduating from college, I joined Peter's grandfather's company, where I still work. I'm told that my father-in-law, Tom, and Peter had joined the company to take over in the future. I think our marriage is a happy one. My kids are growing up with good hearts. We're living with Peter's family, and it was going well until something happened. My grandfather-in-law, John, fell and broke his leg one day. He was over 90 years old and was still working and running his company. After his accident, the true nature of the family came to light. John was a very strict man. When I first joined this family, he used to get angry at me a lot. He harshly criticized my conduct. Don't put your elbow on the table while eating. Wait until you are done chewing to sip a drink. Turn your phone off. Don't create unnecessary noise. When we went out to eat, his eagle eyes got sharper. Take your coat off once you're in the restaurant. Give it to the hostess and never bring it to the table. I received a lot of lectures like these. It seemed that the family was fed up with him. Whenever he disappeared, they talked about him behind his back as a grumpy, bigoted old man. I didn't think he was a bigot. On the contrary, I thought that his teachings were all for my benefit. He didn't explain himself, but just made clear statements, which I thought had valid meanings. To put an eyeball on the table was indeed an impolite act. All the other things he had pointed out to me were also proper mannerisms. I thought he was teaching me to prevent myself from embarrassment. It seemed to me that the point he made at the restaurant was also a sign of consideration for those who were already enjoying their meals. My kids, who had been thoroughly educated by him, had naturally absorbed these lessons. Although they were still in their teens, their manners were outstanding. Moreover, he had never once yelled at them. Even when they were still small and forgot the teachings of the nobility, he never got angry with them. He gradually introduced them to various etiquettes. The reason he was so strict with me was that I was inconsiderate of an adult in my 20s. Such a solid man had lost his freedom due to a broken leg. The whole family was assigned to take care of him on rotation. Since then, my parents-in-law, brother-in-law, and even Peter started complaining.
Oh, it wasn't supposed to be like this.
My mother-in-law, Gwen, moaned when she came back from John's room.
What's wrong? Everything's wrong. I don't know why I have to be troubled by his broken leg. It's exhausting, isn't it? I wish he would just drop dead.
I was absolutely stunned by her comment. She had always been so cheerful that I couldn't believe the abrupt change in her demeanor.
Have you heard about a Jamaican voodoo lady in the neighborhood?
Yes.
Maybe I should go visit her.
For?
Oh, I'm just kidding. But please let me joke around, at least. I'm giving up my precious time to look after him.
A joke? Wishing that on someone? It was a vile one. What was surprise to me was that Peter joined in with her. Seeing him not remonstrating but laughing with her, I felt disgusted.
Huh? Stop saying things like that.
I demanded he correct his behavior when I was alone with him that night.
What are you talking about?
He was genuinely puzzled.
I'm talking about John.
Did I say something wrong?
You and Gwen were laughing about him.
Oh, yes, the voodoo lady. That's funny, isn't it?
Not at all. It's rather repulsive.
Why? It's just a joke. Besides, if my mom can relieve her stress by joking around, there's nothing wrong with it. He didn't care no matter how much I argued. Don't talk about it in front of the kids then. It's not that big of a deal, is it? I don't like it when people joke about death. He's your grandfather. He's done so much for you. It's sad to hear you talk like that. He's just a bigoted old man. That was not true. John taught us a lot of things for our sake. It was meaningless to keep arguing with Peter thought. Anyway, don't do it in front of the kids. Alright. You're starting to sound like him now. Fortunately, Gwen and Tom didn't complain about John in front of the kids. A few days later, believe it or not, Gwen took Peter and his brother with her to the voodoo lady. The three of them came home exultantly. I feel so refreshed. I knew I'd feel differently if I'd ask for help. Me too. It would be funny if you really dropped that. Did you guys see all the knickknacks in the room? They were having an appalling conversation and sounded completely ignorant of the fact. Regardless of how they felt, the voodoo lady wasn't actually a Jamaican. Her grandparents migrated from Fiji, and she was the third-generation American. Moreover, she practiced spiritual healing rather than black magic at her home. I wasn't sure how they believed she was a Jamaican voodoo lady, but I hoped she sent some healing energy to John. The three idiots in front of me, though, were completely oblivious to it. After about a month of looking after John, Gwen started saying odd things. Listen, guys, John's going mad. He just ate a dinner, but he's asking for food again. He was like, "Where's my dinner?" And he keeps talking about the same thing and asking the same question over and over again. I doubted her story. He seemed as usual and never showed a hint of such behavior when I was with him. However, Tom and other male members of the family joined in. Actually, I don't think he even knows who I am. He asked me who I was the other day. Peter and his brother followed. You too? Actually, he asked us the same thing. Maybe he's losing his mind. No way, I don't think so. I knew it. You know what they said about old people, that when they get injured, they get weaker. We need to have a family meeting about this. 2 weeks after that, Tom gathered everyone except John in the living room to make an announcement. I'm going to report to you what has been decided in the family meeting. I was stunned by this statement, and then I felt a void inside. I was not a part of the family meeting. That meant I was not family. I looked at Peter, who was nonchalant. Well, it meant that he didn't think of me as a family member either. Tom was not concerned about my feelings and proceeded with his announcement. My father isn't well. He's lost his mind. You see, what you may call it? Oh, dementia. So, we've decided to move out.
Yes, right. I guess we have no choice.
I was totally at a loss. What the hell were they talking about?
So, Angela, we leave John in your hands.
What do you mean?
We have to protect his company. Don't you understand?
I felt like I was kicked in the stomach. I thought that our marriage had been good and that we'd had strengthened our bond over the years, but it was all in my head. It was no surprise that I was uninvited to the family meeting. I was not accepted in this family, even after all these years.
What are you talking about, Dad? Mom got a job too. And what do you mean you're leaving? I don't get it.
Me either. What's with the family meeting? Mom didn't even know about it. My kids raised their voices.
Peter was flustered by their accusations. Listen, your mother married into this family. That's why she's not a true family member. What are you saying to my kids? Please don't trample on their tender feelings. I'm just telling the truth. I understood. That's enough. Please leave. I'll look after John.
If that's the case, you should have just agreed from the beginning.
John was a strict man, but I had been indebted to him. I had great respect for him, regardless of the numerous scolding. He must have done a lot for his family, even more than he did for me. And yet, when his health began to deteriorate, they easily abandoned him. I didn't want such heartless people to take care of him anyway. I was sure that he was going to need more than simple assistance, but nursing care in the future. Even so, I couldn't entrust him to such self-serving people. What would they do to him?
Well, we'll move to the other house, so you take care of John, okay?
The mover came the next day, and they left the house. The only ones who stayed back with me were my kids. They told me they will help too. Thank you, but it's going to be hard from now on. Don't worry, I love my great-grandpa.
Yeah, me too.
I see. Yeah, me too. I love him too. Let's all work together to make it better. Well, he's a little scary though. What do you mean? The three of us jumped up in surprise. John, how's your leg? It's already healed. 3 months after the shocking turn of events, I was on my way with John to see his escaped family. When Gwen greeted us at the door, her mouth was agape. Is my son here? Yes. Let me speak to him. John strolled into the living room. Oh my God! You can walk? What nonsense! Dad, do you know who I am? Tom smirked. I recall you're the chief sales officer who can't get the job done. What the hell? You're my idiot son. You two are my moronic grandsons. And, you gold digger wife. Dad, oh my God. You guys left me in the hands of Angela. Dementia? That's ridiculous. I know exactly what you guys are now. In fact, John's mind was as sharp as usual. Although he needed assistance after the injury, once he recovered, he was capable of looking after himself. While he was bedridden, he realized that his family was bothered by him, so he put on the show. Do you know why I haven't given you guys the company? You don't have the capacity. If I entrusted it to you, it would fall apart in no time. But, Peter, I am grateful to you. You brought in someone who is suitable for my position. She's smart, can get things done efficiently, and above all, she possesses excellent character with a good heart. I have decided to name Angela as the next CEO. Dad, wait a minute. I'm supposed to take the title, right? Huh? I don't remember saying that. You don't understand anything. Why haven't I retired until now? Why haven't I already given it to you or your sons? It's simply because none of you has the capacity to run the company.
John, please calm down for a moment. The reason we moved here was to protect the company. If we had time to take care of you, we thought we'd better oversee the business. That's why Angela and we split up. She was in charge of your care, and we were in charge of monitoring your company. John laughed dynamically. Not even going to the office and leaving all the work to the employees, but only taking a salary. Is that what you call overseeing the company?
You and I had very different ways of thinking, don't we? I can't give up my position to such people. The three men took advantage of John's absence. They threw everything into the hands of the employees and just took the money to enjoy life. Of course, the employees told John about this. Don't worry, I'm not going to fire you guys. I'm going to let Angela run the company, but she won't do that either. I'm only going to ask you to step down from your positions and start over from the bottom. His family opposed the idea vehemently, but he was determined. 3 days later, I succeeded in his will and became CEO. All the employees, except from my in-laws, approved of me and were all very motivated. Peter, who was stripped of this position, came to kiss my butt. I wasn't sure what he thought, but he showed up at the house alone with a large suitcase. When I came home, he was hanging around outside. Hey, what are you doing here? Oh, thank God, I couldn't get in. Of course not, I changed locks. Why? Well, you know. Anyway, are you going on a trip or something? No, I thought you'd be busy, so I came back. I see. I am super busy. It's rewarding though. Well, let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Oh, thank you. That's nice of you. He looked relieved to see me in a good mood. I unlocked the front door and went inside. He tried to follow me, but I shut the door in his face. Watch it! When I stepped outside again, he looked at me with his eyes wide open. You can help me with this? What are they? I've been too busy being the CEO. I haven't been able to take care of my things. I'm glad you came to me. Thank you. I handed him the divorce papers which I had already signed. Wait a minute. You never mentioned a divorce to me. Right, I just did. Why? Put your dirty hand over your rotten heart and think hard about it, you hypocrite. He was dripping with sweat, and his hands were shaking as he held the divorce papers. When John needed care, you ran away, leaving me behind. Do you think I want to spend the rest of my life with someone like that? Are you crazy? I decided to divorce you at the moment you left me. Of course, the kids agree with me. In fact, they even said it would be good riddance. This is the final decision of the family meeting. Family meeting? I'm family too. What's that, really? But you can't be. I wasn't invited to your family meeting, but you are my family. It doesn't make sense. That's what my mom says, so it's what it is, right? Well, the kids, John and I were all unanimous. You are not a part of our family. The majority is in favor. Wait, this is what was passed only by the yes. It's a shame. Anyway, send me the divorce papers when you're done. From now on, I am your CEO and you're just my employee. Good luck. The divorce took a little over a year due to his reluctance, but we managed to get it done in the end. At the same time as the divorce was finalized, Peter and my ex-in-laws resigned from the company. I assumed their pride was shredded. How did they endure for a year? The company environment is healthier now. What I realized after they're gone is that they really didn't do their jobs. Nothing has changed except for a better work environment. I can see why John wasn't able to retire for this long. A year has passed, and I live with my kids and John. He is as energetic as ever and does everything by himself. Whenever I get stuck at work, he is always there to help me out. As for what happened to my ex-family-in-law, they happily opened a deli together just to fail in that too. Since then, I don't know where they went, but there haven't been any sightings of them in my town anymore. I guess things don't work out because they don't think through. On the other hand, I continue to maintain the company I inherited from John. My life is brighter now.
My mother-in-law thinks his son's salary is $5,000 and bullies me when that money is from me. I did as I was told and got a divorce, and she ends up experiencing hell.
Do you realize how much freedom Tyler gives you? He works for a big company and earns $5,000 a month. You are supposed to be at home and supporting your husband who is doing the hard work and protecting the family. And yet, no matter how much I tell you, you keep getting cocky like that. I've had enough of this. You and Tyler need to get a divorce. With those words, my mother-in-law pulled out the divorce papers from the drawer. My name is Mona, a 34-year-old office worker. My husband Tyler and I have been married for 5 years. We had been living happily since we got married. But our relationship started to fall apart because of one thing. That trigger was my mother-in-law. My husband and I originally lived together in a rented apartment. However, about 2 years ago, my father-in-law passed away due to illness. My mother-in-law, who was now alone, began to push us to live with her. To be honest, I was against the idea of moving in together. I wanted to enjoy my time as a couple. And if we were to live together, I would have to live at my parents-in-law's house. I was very happy with the apartment I was renting, and I did not want to move. However, my mother-in-law started coming to our house repeatedly after she started saying that she wanted to live with us. At first, my husband said, "You're fine on your own, aren't you? You're still young and healthy." But when she kept coming over and over again, it became a hassle. "Hey Mona, my mom has insisted so much, so I'm thinking of moving in with her." Tyler had started to give in to her pushiness. As a result, it became 2 against 1, and I had no choice but to agree to live with her. So this is how it started. Living at my in-laws, it was the beginning of hell. My mother-in-law is a very old-fashioned person, and she didn't like the fact that I, her daughter-in-law, was working. "Why does Tyler come home before you? Normally, a wife cooks dinner and welcomes her husband, right? You are a lousy wife to work for money to have fun and neglect the housework." My mother-in-law said so and blames me for it every day.
I don't work for money to play. I work for money to live.
I told her so, but she did not listen to me at all. It's no use trying to deceive me like that. Tyler's earnings are enough for us, so you should quit your job. That's how my mother-in-law told me to quit my job. Stop it, Mom. Mona is working for our family. Don't tell her to limit herself like that. But my husband comes in to protect me whenever my mother-in-law blames me. My mother-in-law is at a loss for words when my husband, her only son, talks back to her. It's like she doesn't want to fight with her precious son. It seems that you have brainwashed him, so I will have to break that brainwashing someday. My mother-in-law says that to me when my husband is not around. I don't know if she just wants to bully me, or if she has her head stuck in the old way of thinking. But either way, I wish she would be more flexible. After all, she was the one who requested to live together in the first place. My mother-in-law soon stopped nagging me when my husband is around, because my husband protects me every time. However, when my husband is away, she starts right away. Why do you let Tyler wash the dishes when he feeds you? I can't believe it.
This is a rule that my husband and I decided together. Tyler can't cook, so I cook every day, and Tyler does the dishes. When I say this, my mother-in-law looks disgusted.
When I was young like you, we weren't allowed to do that. And after making such a bad dish, how dare you talk like that? You should ask him to do the dishes after you make better food.
Seriously? I could just make her skip meals every day. I usually cooked with a light flavor. This is because my husband's health checkup results were not so good. And my mother-in-law is also old, so she should take care of her health. That's why I keep the seasoning light.
So she had no reason to complain about it.
If she didn't like it, she should have made it herself.
And I still have other complaints about my mother-in-law. She spends too much money. She frequently buys new clothes and expensive luxury brand bags. I always frown when I see her matching the clothes she buys in front of the mirror.
Did you buy clothes again?
What? Are you complaining? It's not like you are paying for it. Tyler earns a lot of money, so that you can live a rich life like this if you are jealous. I gave birth to him, so you should be more grateful. To say the truth, I wish you would use your money for me rather than playing around with it. I was horrified. My mother-in-law would spend it all in a heartbeat if I gave her my salary as it is. I would never do such a thing. Fortunately, I had already converted the bank book of my own account to an electronic one, so there was usually no need to worry about it being seen. The one for the shared account is hidden in my room. Still, it is hard for me not to tell the truth to my mother-in-law. In fact, if you compare my husband's earnings with me, mine are much higher. I work as an employee of a general company, and I'm currently in the position of section manager. On top of that, on weekends, I make use of the certification I have and teach English online. I am a pretty popular teacher, if I do say so myself. So when I combine my income from working as a company employee and an English teacher, it's quite a lot. On the other hand, my husband used to work for a large company, but his job was too strenuous and he became mentally ill. As a result, he had to resign from his job and is currently looking for a new job while working part-time. However, we have been living like that for about 2 years now. I think he's not planning to look for a full-time job. When we moved in together, my husband told me that he didn't want his mother to worry about him. He asked me not to tell his mother that he had resigned from his job due to a mental illness. He said that if she found out, she might go to his former company to yell at them. I'm sure that his mother, who loves his son very much, would do something like that. I did as my husband asked and promised not to tell his mother about our income. However, she always says that my husband earns money to support me, when even her wasteful spending comes from my income. I don't understand why she treats me so poorly. Stress built up inside me little by little. Then one day, I received a call from a friend of mine who had not seen me for about 6 months because she was busy. I was happy to hear from her out of the blue.
Hey, what's up? Oh, Mona, your husband hasn't found a new job yet, has he?
No, he hasn't.
Why are you talking about my husband? I was just driving through town on my way back from my client's place. I saw your husband walking arm in arm with a young girl.
What? My mind went blank. My husband having an affair? That's impossible. We are a close couple. Even though we sometimes fight, my husband protects me from my mother-in-law, and we have normal conversations at home. But I can't believe that he is having an affair. But I don't think my friend is joking either, since I haven't heard from her in a while. And she is calling me during the day, while working. She is not the kind of friend who would pull a prank like that. My mind was a jumble of feelings of wanting to believe my husband and feeling uneasy. I decided that I had no choice but to make things clear. So I asked the credit agency to conduct an investigation. I was really stressed for a few weeks until the results of the investigation came back. And that's the same time when my mother-in-law was being troublesome. Tyler, I want to go on an overseas trip. What? Overseas? Why all of a sudden? My friend's son gave her a trip to Europe to celebrate her 60th birthday. So I wanted to go on a trip to Europe for my birthday too. I see. You're turning 60 this year, huh? My husband crossed his arms and started thinking in front of me. No. It's not your problem. I'm the one paying for it. And I'm absolutely against it. I was thinking such a thing in my mind. I was distrustful of my husband. But as long as there was no evidence yet, I tried not to talk about our income. Then, my husband agreed to do it. I couldn't help but butt in. Wait, Tyler! Don't just decide on that without asking me. A trip to Europe costs a lot of money, you know? I said in a slight panic. And as always, my mother-in-law started to attack me. What? I didn't ask you for anything. I'm asking Tyler. You don't bring money into the house, and you don't even do the housework, so don't interrupt me, she shouted. And then she continued. You know, do you realize how much freedom Tyler gives you? He works for a big company and earns $5,000 a month. You are supposed to be at home and supporting your husband who is doing the hard work and protecting the family. And yet, no matter how much I tell you, you keep getting cocky like that. I've had enough of this. You and Tyler need to get a divorce. My mother-in-law told me to divorce my husband. This surprised my husband as well as me. What are you talking about? Don't decide our divorce. Tyler, you were deceived by this woman. She's just using you for her own convenience. If you stay with her, you will be unhappy. So, break it off. Saying this, my mother-in-law pulled out the divorce papers from the drawer. My husband, who didn't think she had even prepared such a thing, was obviously surprised. Mom, come on. Why do you even have divorce papers ready? My husband apparently has no intention of divorcing me. At the time, I had a faint hope. I thought that the reason my husband did not want to divorce me was because he loved me, and that what my friend had seen was someone else. I wanted to believe that my husband was not having an affair, and that he was thinking of me and only me. I wanted to believe that. So I refused to sign the divorce papers, just as my husband had refused. However, my faint hopes soon went down the drain. I received a letter from the credit agency informing me of the result of their investigation. When I checked the contents, I found a number of photographs of my husband. It was obvious my husband was having an affair. I was shocked. At the same time, I was furious. I knew that my husband had been acting like a good husband at home. But behind my back, he was having a good time with a young woman. The woman he was having an affair with was a waitress at a cafe where he worked part-time. She was 24 years old, 10 years younger than my husband. I guess it was because she was so young that my love for my husband instantly disappeared. Then, around that time, my mother-in-law booked a trip to Europe. Of course, I had no intention of going, but my mother-in-law had a triumphant look on her face. Mona, you are staying at home, okay? You always spend too much of Tyler's money as much as you want, she said. I don't want to pay for the overseas trip of my husband, who is having an affair, and my mother-in-law, who is a bully. So I whispered to my husband, You are going to have to use your own money this time. My husband got quite upset and whispered back, Wait a minute. It's a married couple's business, so you'll have to pay for it. It seems that he intends to rely solely on me. Now, it was clear that my husband only sees me as a convenient housekeeper who earns money for him. I'm divorcing you. What? Why? Divorce? I had said this in a voice that even my mother-in-law could hear. And she brought me the divorce papers with a very happy look on her face. So, you finally decided to move out of this house. Isn't it great news, Tyler? Now, you won't have to throw your money down the drain. Tyler could not seem to tell the truth to his mother because he had kept it from her for so long. He signed the divorce papers under his joyful mother's presence. I'll take it and file it at the office, I said as I packed up my belongings to leave. My mother-in-law grinned triumphantly and said, I want to help you even if you were in debt, and walked me out. My husband had his head down without saying a word. I went back to my parents' house, filled out my part of the divorce papers, had my parents sign the witness box, and submitted the divorce papers to the government office. Then, of course, I sent a content-certified letter through my lawyer to Tyler and the affair partner's workplace. I blocked his contact information, and he could not contact me even if he needed to. But instead, he came to my parents' house alone. I didn't want to see him, so my father handled it. Tyler insisted that he couldn't pay alimony. I guess he had not told his mother anything yet, seeing that she was not there. My father turned Tyler away without question, so I never had to see his face. And he made him promise to pay me through my lawyer, even if it was in installments. But then, about 3 months later, this time, my ex-mother-in-law and my ex-husband came to my parents' house together. I was living at home at the recommendation of my parents, so I was there just when they came. Again, my father handled the situation first. My mother and I listened and watched. Then I heard my ex-mother-in-law screaming, "Why have all the lifelines in our house stopped? Your daughter must have done something. She's not taking Tyler's salary, is she?" I heard such a voice, and I was impressed how this woman could be so confident. She never admits that her own son is at fault, and she just wants to make me the bad guy. I kind of felt sorry for my ex-mother-in-law and decided to show my face in front of the two of them. When my ex-mother-in-law noticed me, she widened her eyes and yelled at me. "You finally showed your face. You put both Tyler and me in a lot of trouble. I don't know how you did it, but you gotta get the power and water back on. I didn't even get to go to Europe for my 60th birthday celebration because of you. I would like to calmly tell you that I am not in charge of paying utility bills and so on. After our divorce, I leave all that to Tyler. If the lifeline is stopped, it's because Tyler's salary isn't enough to pay it, isn't it? When I said this, my ex-mother-in-law raised her voice. Are you stupid? Tyler works for a big company and earns $5,000 a month. How can he not be able to pay the bills? Apparently, Tyler hasn't told his mother after all. I showed her my tax slip to show her the reality. This is my income from my company, and this is my income from teaching English online. You teach English? My ex-mother-in-law was clearly surprised. Then she took a close look at the withholding tax slip, and her eyes widened. Well, it looks like it's true that you receive about $5,000 a month. Then, what about Tyler's salary? If it's the same as it was right before we broke up, he's a part-timer at a cafe. I would say his take-home pay is about $600 a month. $600? And since he has to pay the alimony for the affair, I bet he has very little money for living expenses. Right? An affair? Why? Isn't Tyler a businessman working for a big company? My ex-mother-in-law was about to collapse because the reality was so far away from what she thought it was. Tyler looked uncomfortable. Mom, I'm sorry. I have been meaning to tell you. He apologized. Then she started to say something outrageous. Mona, I'm sorry. I said selfish things without knowing anything about you. I will reflect on what I said, so please come back. What in the world is this person talking about? How can you ask me to come back under the circumstances? I am already divorced from Tyler, so we are strangers. There's no reason for me to go back. And I'll still have to support you too, even if I did. Who would want to go back in that situation? If you stay here any longer, I will call the police. So please, leave as soon as possible. When I said this calmly, my ex-mother-in-law and ex-husband made a pathetic sound and left. Then I put a restraining order in place so that I could report my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law if they appeared in front of me. As for the two after that, I sent the proof of the affair to the cafe. And people at work started giving Tyler the cold shoulder. He had no choice but to quit his job at the cafe with his partner. However, he had to pay for the alimony, so he is currently working several part-time jobs. In the end, he is working as much as he did when he was mentally ill at his former company. It looks like his affair partner has left him, and he is now living with his mother. However, my ex-mother-in-law is gradually showing symptoms of dementia, so he has to work hard to pay off his debts, while also taking care of his mother. It served them right. On the other hand, I continue to live with my parents and save money at a very fast pace. In fact, I'm currently saving quite a bit of money. I am planning to invest in the near future to further increase my assets and aim to be semi-retired in a few years.
My mill says, "You only live here like a worm that eats on our own dime. Get out," and gladly agrees to my divorce.
I am Ava, and I am almost in my late 30s. Meanwhile, my friends around me were getting married and building families one after another. Ever since I broke up with my boyfriend when I was in college, I had been single for a long time. I was unable to find a suitable partner, and I looked at my friends who were happy with their families. I grew more and more impatient. Sometimes, when I met my friends for a girls' night out, those with families always said,
"You should save money for yourself while you are still single."
They advised that if you have a saving account separate from your common property, it will definitely be useful no matter what happens after you get married. I didn't really understand what they meant by that, but as a bachelorette, I didn't have the opportunity to be extravagant. And other than the living expenses that I put into my parents' house, I was steadily increasing my assets for myself by saving money and investing in stocks. I then finally decided to get married. Jacob works in sales for one of my business partners. As a receptionist, I often saw him coming and going within the company. As we greeted each other, we naturally began to have casual conversations, which led to a deep relationship. It wasn't long before we were ready to get married. My married life with my husband was very peaceful, and I felt very safe when I was with him. I felt a little bit awkward about getting married in my late 30s, but my husband was already in his 40s. I promised myself that I would cherish the time we spent together for the rest of our lives. However, this carefree life did not last long. The happy days soon faded away. The biggest culprit was my mother-in-law, Lily. When I went to greet her at the wedding, the first thing she said to me when she saw me was, "I thought you were a pretty young lady, but you actually look quite settled and plain. How old are you?" Her words were polite, but it was clear that she was being bitterly sarcastic toward me, an old woman.
"I'm 37.
Really? And this is your first marriage? You are not being punished too severely, are you? Do you have children?"
"No, nothing like that. Because I have never been married before. I wondered if that was the right way to turn things around."
I also wondered about Lily, who was so blatantly inquisitive at the first meeting. My father-in-law was quietly listening to what I was saying, and my husband-to-be was smiling, as though he was very troubled. Why is he not protecting me? I realized that, although he was kind, he couldn't stand up for his mother. Thinking back, it may have already been decided that there was going to be an irreparable fraying of our lives. After our marriage, we moved in with my parents-in-law. Until then, my husband had always lived at home and supported his parents by himself. So he strongly asked me to support them after marriage. To be honest, I am not very good at supporting my parents-in-law, especially Lily. She's been the worst from the first time I met her, and that impression has never changed. I'm sure my mother-in-law is the same. Ever since we started living together, she has been sarcastic and harsh about every little thing. And so my heart felt like it was being pricked. At first, I was just hurt. But as she continued saying things to me, I began to feel an inexpressible anger. But I didn't want my marriage with my husband to be damaged, so I desperately endured the bullying. Recently, however, my mother-in-law began to mistreat me, not only with sarcasm, but also with blatant harassment. One morning, after getting ready, I went to the dining table to find that there was not enough breakfast for one more person. Is anyone skipping breakfast today? I wondered and asked my mother-in-law, who was cooking in the kitchen. What are you talking about? Everyone is here today. But
there's not enough food for one more person, right?
Oh, that. I don't like a girl who doesn't know what she's doing. So I didn't make anything for you.
Even though you usually cooked for us.
You are my daughter-in-law, aren't you? If that's the case, you should get up early and make breakfast for everyone. What kind of nerve do you have to leave it to me alone? I'm not going to cook for you from now on. Go eat on your own. It should be easy for you because you only have to cook for yourself, right? I'd been so lenient with you.
My mother-in-law says this and makes breakfast just for my father-in-law and my husband, ignoring me at all costs. She even prepared a lavish boxed lunch for them. But obviously, I am the one who married into this family. So perhaps I should be more active in the housework. Even if she said some mean things to me, she'd been preparing meals for me so far. So my mother-in-law is not a bad person. That's what I told myself. However, after that, my mother-in-law's harassment of me escalated. One Sunday, my mother-in-law told me that she was going to meet her friend for the first time in a long time, and she was very excited the night before. When I woke up in the morning, she was already gone. And to be honest, I was relieved that Lily, who was always mean to me, was not there. The house was very quiet with my husband and father-in-law. I prepared lunch for the three of us. I wondered what time my mother-in-law would be home. I wondered if she would come home for dinner. I didn't hear from her until after 4 p.m. So I decided to cook only for the three of us who were at home at the time, and then decided to prepare dinner for my mother-in-law later. And when dinner was prepared, and the three of us were sitting around the table, I heard my mother-in-law's voice saying, "I'm home more happily than usual. I had so much fun today. It's so nice to see friends, isn't it? I bought souvenirs for everyone." My mother-in-law came into the living room, hurriedly saying so. Then looked at the dining table and suddenly became grumpy. "Did I ask you to prepare dinner?" No, I didn't hear from you, so I thought you might be coming home late and prepare dinner. I thought I would prepare dinner for you later. As I was stumbling over my words, my mother-in-law became angry.
"Since I went out today, I was going to buy a lot of delicious delicacies from the department store. See? I bought all this food, and yet it's all for nothing. Get rid of all those food you made, even if they have an expiration date. Your food is so bad that it's not even edible to begin with. Put yourself in the shoes of your husband and father-in-law who were forced to eat such bad food. Here, put everything down the sink."
My mother-in-law's forcefulness pushed me, my husband, and my father-in-law to take the dinner that we had laid out on the table to the sink.
"Oh, but you don't have any of this side dish, do you? So please eat the meal you had made. I'm glad you didn't let all the food go to waste." I couldn't help but feel angry at her words. But it would be very strange to get angry at this point. I tried my best to control my anger and decided to eat my meal alone behind the kitchen table. At the dining table, my mother-in-law was enjoying herself. "This is bean curry tofu from famous Chinese restaurant, and this is from a famous chef."
She was explaining to them about the food she had bought. She must have had a lot of shopping at the department store. They listened to her seeming completely uninterested, and she didn't even notice that they were looking a bit bored. I felt a little sorry for my mother-in-law, but as I was listening to her from the kitchen, I got flabbergasted when I saw her outfit. Isn't that the new dress I had bought to wear on our next company trip? I couldn't stand still, so I ran out of the room. Lily? My mother-in-law looked at me with a surprised face. That's my dress, isn't it? Why are you wearing it? Oh, I wanted to wear a new dress since I was going to meet a friend. I looked around and found just the right one. I'm sorry, I didn't know it was yours. I knew it was a lie. She knew it was mine and she had deliberately worn it without permission. I was looking forward to going out in my new dress. And then she took it away from me so easily. Moreover, this dress was the perfect size for me. But when my mother-in-law put it on, her flabby belly was visible. I guess she is basically the type of person who doesn't care about what she wears as long as she can wear it. I don't know what people think of her outside the house, but I can't forgive her for ruining my new dress. Besides, that bag she's using was also mine, isn't it? I realized even more. The bag that my mother-in-law used to bring back souvenirs. It was also a branded bag that I had used with care. How could she use someone else's property without permission? Does this person have no common sense? You know what? I was going to do a lot of shopping today, so I thought a large bag would be good. I found just the right one, so I used this. Was this yours too? Then I'm sorry. My mother-in-law was so hateful to me. My anger had already reached its peak. This was not the first time my mother-in-law had taken my personal belongings without my permission. In the past, she had taken my watch, which was given to me by my mother. And she also traveled with my father-in-law, using the ticket that I was going to give to my parents as a present. There were many other incidents. After remembering all of this, I started to feel like I didn't care anymore. I'd been trying to keep my mouth shut and bear it because I don't want to ruin our family. But now, I have no choice but to take it out on her. But aren't you being a little too rebellious today? You only live here like a worm that eats on our own dime. So don't make a big fuss when I borrow something from you. If you have problem with me, you can leave any time you want. My mother-in-law said firmly. With those words, I felt something snap inside me. Yes, next week. I'll get everything done by next week. Having made up my mind, I then took a longer bath than usual that day to cleanse myself. The week that followed felt like a long time. My mother-in-law continued to harass me, but I could bear it knowing that it would be over soon. I no longer felt the shred of affection for my husband, who kept trying to put on a kind face. I was surprised at myself that my feelings for him have gotten cold. But I don't want to continue living like this anymore. I wanted to be free as soon as possible. With these feelings alone, I spent that week patiently enduring. Then came the fateful Sunday. My mother-in-law was humming to herself and vacuuming the house. The time when she could be happy like that would soon be over. I had called someone and arranged for him to come to our house in the afternoon. Then the person rang the doorbell. My mother-in-law was surprised at the sudden arrival and invited him inside the house. Well then, the counterattack begins. What is this all about? You say you are an appraiser, but what are you going to sell? My mother-in-law looks at me anxiously. The person I invited is an appraiser of antiques. I called him here today because there is something I wanted to check. I wanted to clarify something. Lily, You told me that you lost the watch that was given to me by my mother, right? I haven't received it back yet. But did you find it after that? I calmly asked my mother-in-law. Well, I haven't found it yet. But it's a cheap one that you can buy anywhere, right? Why don't you just buy the same one again? You're persistent, aren't you? My mother-in-law still doesn't seem to take offense at all. I continued. That watch was actually a memento of my grandmother's, a famous branded watch that cost over $300,000. It was a limited edition model from my grandmother's era, so you can't get one anymore. My mother-in-law's face turned pale at my words. My father-in-law comes from the side.
Oh, I remember you sold a watch at an antique store. You mean that one?
He said.
You sold a memento at an antique store?
My husband was puzzled.
No. It looked nice, so I thought I would use it to earn a little extra money. I thought I would let them use it, but I was going to buy it back when I could afford it. I didn't know it was so old.
I think that, for all her feigning weakness, she soon returned to having that strong expression, looking down on me, to no end. If that's the way she's going to take it, I'm not going to give up. So, Mr. Miller, what was the results of the appraisal of that watch that I requested the other day? I urged him.
I'm not certain, but if it is a limited edition model of the year, I think it will be no less than $200,000, even if it's conservative estimation.
The appraiser said so clearly.
What?
My mother-in-law was surprised with her mouth open.
What? I can't believe you sold such a valuable item without permission.
My husband was also surprised. He had noticed that my mother-in-law was taking my personal belongings as she pleased. But my husband had pretended to ignore it until now. Still, I can't forgive him for that even now. But it's a watch. I didn't have much, so if I could use it to bring in some money, it would be my last act of filial piety, I said quietly.
The last one?
My husband was surprised. I feel sorry for you. Though you were not to blame, I don't want to live with you anymore, with my in-laws and your lack of interest in defending me. Yes, I know. I'm getting divorced too. So, you and your mother are strangers to me now.
What? Divorce? What do you mean?
My husband was very upset. I'm sorry, but I've already made a decision. That's right. I will never waver in this feeling again. I have no love left for my husband. Lily seems restless. She seems unmoved at all that she had sold off the watch.
I can't believe that watch was worth that much. If I buy it back now, I wonder if I can sell it for more.
My mother-in-law is not afraid to talk nonsense like that. I doubt her nerve to say such a thing even after all this time.
You said you were getting a divorce, didn't you? If that's the case, give us a little more money for taking care of your living expenses until now.
Again with the money talk. I was really fed up.
Oh, okay.
Can I send it as a check? How much do you want? My mother-in-law seemed to be surprised when I answered without hesitation.
A check?
I don't care how much it is. To be honest, I have more than enough assets, so I'm not troubled by money at all.
Assets? Where in the world did you get those assets?
That's none of your business. Thank you for all the help you've given me. Goodbye. I said that, and the appraiser and I quickly left the house. I would never cross the threshold of this house again. I felt really refreshed. In the week since I decided I was ready to get divorced, I first organized my personal belongings. As a friend had told me a long time ago, I have over $300,000 in assets from savings and stock investments in my name that I made before I got married. In the event of divorce, common property is usually divided with the husband, but since it's all my personal assets, it's handled differently. With this much money, even if I can't marry anyone in the future, I will have enough money to live on my own until retirement. You should save money while you are still single. I didn't really understand that. But now that I got married and divorced, I am really glad that I have my own assets. On the advice of a friend, I started investing in index funds. The initial amount of saving was small, but it increased it to $5,000 per month. The $60,000 per year I accumulated has been growing rapidly, supported by the strong economy and compound interest calculations. It has been 15 years since I was a bachelorette. My steady investment in mutual funds has paid off, and I have amassed a large fortune. My ex-husband and in-laws had no choice but to continue living in the house after I was gone. I heard that my ex-mother-in-law's harassment and bullying of me had become a rumor in the neighborhood, and she was very unhappy because she could no longer get along with them. My ex-husband was labeled as someone whose wife immediately ran away, just when he had finally got married, because he was too weak to stand up to his parents and take care of his wife. I think he will probably continue to pursue marriage, but honestly, I think it will be difficult. Marriage is not a goal, but a new start in life. I strongly felt that this time. I thought that since I got married in my late 30s, all I had to do was to spend the rest of my life peacefully. But I never thought that I would have such a turbulent married life. But that is exactly why I am determined to meet my true life partner, with whom I can overcome the good times and the bad times together. Until I meet such a match someday, I will be on my own again for the time being. I will continue to steadily increase my assets to live on my own.
I've decided to divorce you.
What the heck?
I'm getting remarried to my mistress, so I don't need you anymore.
Out of the blue, my husband hit me with a bombshell. But surprisingly, it worked out well for me. Oh, really? Well then, goodbye. I'm Holly, a 48-year-old housewife. I've been married to Toby for 15 years. We live as a family of 3 with our son, Max. We used to have my mother-in-law, Jenny, living with us. I had a full-time job before, but due to the need for Jenny's care, I resigned and moved in with her. Since then, I've been juggling caregiving, raising Max, and working part-time for our household finances. It's been super busy every single day. Time has flown by in a hectic blur. I've been very dissatisfied with my marriage because Toby doesn't do anything at home. He's dumped everything on me. Even though I've never had an experience with caregiving, he left me to take care of Jenny, who required an intermediate level of care, on top of handling our son and doing all the housework. Not only that, he often adopts a high-handed attitude.
Hey, clothes are all scattered all over the place.
Oh, sorry about that. Max threw them around.
Then pick them up right away, or scold him and make him pick them up.
I was just helping your mom to the bathroom.
Don't talk back to me. You're my wife. Act like it. Keep quiet and just do what you're supposed to do.
He yells at me like that. I find myself gradually unable to argue back. I think no matter what I say, he'll just get angry. For him, his mood is the most important, and if anything spoiled it, he blames me for everything. He has a nasty temper. I often wonder how things ended up like this. When we were dating, he was loving and caring. He treated me very well and tried hard to make our dates enjoyable. I thought I'd have a happy marriage with him, so I enthusiastically accepted his proposal. But when I opened that lid, I found nothing but a terrible husband who engaged in emotional abuse. Still, I didn't resort to a divorce, probably because of my strong sense of responsibility. I couldn't abandon Jenny, and I wanted to raise Max properly. So, even when Toby treated me awfully, I endured it for their sake. Well, there might have been a part of stubbornness on my part, too. I wanted to handle the housework and parenting well to shut him up. There was a competitive streak in me. In any case, I didn't want to give up halfway. If I divorced him and ran away then, I would have surely regretted it. No matter what I did, thoughts of Jenny needing care and Max would have kept haunting me. If so, I didn't think I could spend the rest of my life happily. So I didn't take the path of divorce. Although I'm not sure if it was a good or bad decision now, but well. I busted my butt trying to balance housework, parenting, and caregiving. I had even taken up a freelancing job from home in the middle of it all. Toby's spending habits were reckless. We often struggled to make ends meet. So, I decided to use my experiences to start the side gig. At first, it didn't bring in much income, but gradually the rewards started coming in. I realized I could still do anything if I set my mind to it. I had even busier days after that. Jenny's health kept declining and she needed more and more assistance. That meant I had to be by her side for many things she couldn't do alone. Not just bathroom stuff, but even eating was becoming a challenge for her. So I cut the food into small pieces, and then I fed her. Toby didn't even react to it at all. Rather, he seemed to be avoiding his own mother.
Don't let Mom be in the living room while I'm eating. It ruins my mood.
How dare you say such a thing? She's your mother.
Once she's like that, she's not my mom anymore. Anyway, take care of her out of my sight.
He often came up with such selfish and unreasonable demands. On weekends, he always went out drinking, coming home completely wasted. He was loud, high-spirited, and reeked of booze, and honestly, it was a real hassle. Even though I was exhausted from a busy day, he summoned me, ordering me to bring him to the living room and such. Even if I ignored him, he kept yelling, so I had no choice but to obey. That kind of thing happened all the time. It felt like I had another big child besides Max. Other than that, whenever he was in a bad mood, he immediately started berating me.
You're too plain, you know? You've abandoned being a woman. It's terrible. Can't you try a bit harder?
Why did he need to say such a thing? I didn't have time or money for myself. And that was all because he didn't do anything and splurged for himself. Buying expensive clothes, cars, you name it. And I was always stressed about it. In that situation, I couldn't afford any luxuries. And even if I could, I didn't even have time to do something for myself. I wondered if he didn't understand that or if he was intentionally making snide remarks, but either way, I thought he was a jerk. I swore to myself that I was going to give him a piece of my mind one day. I hoped for the day to come sooner rather than later. Then I told myself to responsibly take care of Jenny until the end. I was pushing through with a rebellious spirit against Toby and a sense of responsibility for caregiving and parenting. Still, the tough times outweighed the good. While Max was growing up just fine, seeing how Toby was treating me, he started acting out against me.
Hey, old lady. I have a field trip tomorrow, so give me some money.
Who are you speaking to? Don't call me old lady.
Shut up. Just do what you're told.
Yep, totally the same tone as his dad. I couldn't stand being spoken to like that by my son. And most importantly, I was concerned about him growing up with that kind of language from a young age. Max, you need to use more polite language. When you grow up, you're gonna face some struggles yourself, you know.
Ugh. Don't lecture me, old lady. I'm telling you to stop that.
No matter how much he rebelled against me, I tried my best to straighten him up. But he seemed to be heavily influenced by his dad. He never cleaned up the dishes after eating, just like Toby. And he always played games instead of studying. No matter what I said, he kept up with a rebellious attitude. When he entered middle school, puberty hit, making it even harder to relate. He didn't tell me anything that happened at school and didn't show me any school notices. I often had to rush to prepare things at the last minute. Seeing me in a frenzy, he just laughed out loud, and Toby insulted me, saying I was incompetent. I kept trying to figure out how to communicate with my son. I wondered if changing my approach would work. So, I tried being extremely nice, but he just got more arrogant. I was at the wit's end, as he kept playing games all the time and staying out late at night. Even though I scolded and guided him many times, he responded with insults every time. As he got older, he stopped listening altogether. When I found cigarettes in his room, I scolded him severely. But he just said everyone did it and showed no remorse. I thought it was better for Toby to reprimand him in that case, so I spoke to him. But he just said it wasn't a big deal as a lot of people smoked in his time too. With things like that, it was impossible to make Max into a decent adult. I didn't know what else to do anymore. I had to do housework, take care of Jenny, and work for a living. With too much to do and think about it, I was exhausted every day. I was amazed I hadn't broken down physically. I was truly grateful to my parents who gave me a sturdy body. While enduring those tough days, time flew by. My marriage surpassed 15 years, and Max became a high school student. Then, Jenny fell ill and required hospitalization. I visited her every day. Just the removal of caregiving reduced physical exhaustion significantly, so honestly, it was a relief. Nevertheless, I had decided to take care of her until the end, so I faithfully went to see her at the hospital. Toby and Max never showed any concern for her. As far as I know, they never visited her. During her hospital stay, Jenny often thanked me. "I've caused you so much trouble. We're not blood related, but you diligently took care of me." I always respected that. "And I've always felt sorry about it." "Oh, Jenny, please, don't worry about that." No, it's not that simple. I've really made you go through a lot by making you do everything. I'm especially sorry about Toby. I never thought my son would have such a terrible attitude. If my late husband and I had given him better guidance. No, it's not your fault. Don't feel responsible. The conversations we had during that time were meaningful to me. She appreciated my efforts in caregiving, and I felt that my hard work wasn't in vain. It felt good that I was rewarded like that. She stayed in the hospital for 2 months. Then, one day, her condition worsened, and she passed away. I'm glad to this day that I was with her in her final moments. Toby and Max didn't even show up. I despised them, wondering if they were truly blood-related families. I wanted them to at least show their faces at the end. After that, I proceeded with arrangements and preparations for Jenny's funeral. Of course, Toby didn't do anything and left it all to me. I expected it, so I took charge and moved forward on my own. I was able to send her off in a beautiful service. Afterward, I sorted out her belongings and handled various procedures. Finally, I thought I could take a breath. But then I noticed Toby acting suspiciously, doing something secret with Max. Whenever I entered the living room where they were talking, they would stop and act fidgety. And when I left, they would huddle together again and talk about something. I wondered what they were scheming. Well, whatever they were up to, it didn't concern me anymore. I had learned not to expect anything from them. No matter how strict I was with Max, his personality didn't change. Toby continued his high-handed attitude towards me, and our marital relationship was non-existent. There was nothing more I could do about them. If they were planning something, I decided I'd take action too. I started making preparations. And then about 2 months passed. It was summer vacation at that time, and since Max was home all day, I started working at a cafe. When he was at home, he gave orders, just like Toby. That made it impossible to focus on work. So I went to a cafe to finish it. Even though it was a short time, I could concentrate and complete all by the afternoon. When I thought I'd stop by the supermarket before heading home, Toby suddenly called me. It had been a while since I received a call from him. Surprised, I answered the phone. Hello, what's up?
Where are you?
I'm on my way home after working at a cafe.
Carefree, huh? I mean, what work? You were just sipping coffee without a care in the world, right?
What do you want? Did you call just to make fun of me?
Oh, right. I did have something to tell you. I've decided to leave you.
What the heck?
I'm talking about getting a divorce.
You can't just drop something so serious out of the blue. And what about Max?
I don't need you anymore since I'm remarrying my girlfriend. Well, I guess it's tough for you to be suddenly dumped like this, but hang in there.
He dropped a bombshell out of nowhere, but surprisingly, it worked out well for me. No, really? Well then, goodbye.
Huh?
I said goodbye. We're divorcing, right?
Oh, sure, but you're taking this surprisingly lightly.
Well, I've been wanting it for a while, you know.
What?
I can't keep going with a lowlife like you. Now that your mom's gone, you probably think you can just discard me, right? But once I bid farewell to her, I planned to leave you too. Don't act like you're the one in control and dumping me.
Oh, is that so? But you don't have any income, and your future looks pretty bleak from now on, doesn't it? Maybe you're putting on a brave front, but our paths diverge when it comes to it.
Who knows? Well, you can believe whatever makes you feel better.
You sound so smug.
I have nothing more to discuss, so let's handle it through the lawyers from now on.
Lawyers? Where are you going to get that money?
I said, we're done talking. You're bothering me, so I'm hanging up.
Hey!
I forcefully hung up the phone. Then I immediately booked a hotel room and stayed overnight. After that, I put my plans into action. To tell you the truth, I had already rented a place to live after separating from Toby. It was ready for me to move in any time, so I relocated the next day. I quickly bought essentials, making it possible to live for the time being. Then I contacted the attorney I had consulted and asked him to proceed with the divorce. A few days later, Toby called. What do you want now?
What the heck do you think you're doing? You sent a mass email to my company.
Well, everyone at your workplace should know what you've been up to until now. You've been emotionally abusing me for a long time, and there's also the matter of your affair. The evidence photos were attached, right? You can't deny it anymore.
How dare you? Because of that, I became a laughingstock. My boss even cut me out of the big project I was leading.
Oh, well, I can't blame him. People with personality issues probably shouldn't be in positions of authority, right? What you've done is just despicable as a person.
God, are you seriously going to demand alimony? I have been supporting you financially all this time. Wasn't that enough?
Of course not. I'll take whatever I can get.
Ugh, even if you succeed in squeezing money out of me, remember, you're still beneath me.
Is that so? I make a decent income as a freelancer. Now that I don't have to take care of you and Max, I'm increasing my work volume. There's no problem living on my own.
You're kidding me.
Anyway, I won't be talking to you anymore. Follow the lawyer's instructions and handle the procedures precisely. If you refuse or ignore them, I'm ready to fight in court.
Ugh.
After that, Toby finally agreed to my demand and paid the alimony. I received about 50% of his annual income in a lump sum. A few months after I started living alone, I received a call from Max. Hello? What on earth do you want?
Mom, please help me.
I'm not your mom, though.
What are you saying? Just help me, please.
What happened?
I got caught shoplifting and the store is about to call the police.
Oh, wow.
I'll give you the location, so come quickly and apologize together.
Why me?
Because you're my mom.
Oh, I see. Your dad hasn't told you yet, huh?
What are you talking about?
You're my stepson.
What?
When you were 1 year old, your dad and I got married, so we're not biologically related. You're a stranger to me now that I'm not with your dad.
No way.
He was left speechless upon learning the unexpected truth. Well then, why not ask your mom-to-be for help? A young and cute girlfriend of your dad.
Ugh, that woman just lazes around at home all day and goes out having fun without paying any attention to me. So I can only rely on you, Mom.
I see. Well, too bad for you. I don't want anything to do with you anymore. You should just accept the consequences and obey what the officers tell you, okay?
What? No, please, help me.
Nope. Bye. I hung up and blocked any further calls. Later, I found out from Toby's relatives that Max was taken to the police station. He was also investigated at school and ended up getting expelled for various reasons, including being caught smoking. He became a shut-in, and he and his new mom-to-be constantly fought. She apparently couldn't handle the situation and eventually left the house. Toby's now single, taking care of a son who does nothing, and stays at home, all while facing cold glares at work as the abusive cheater. It's a tough situation, but he brought it on himself. On the flip side, I'm enjoying my comfortable new life. Work is coming in steadily, income is growing, and life is pretty easy. I'll keep working hard, build up some assets, and occasionally treat myself to a bit of luxury. I'm planning to live a fulfilling life from here on out.